When you think about dangerous places to work, perhaps you wouldn't think about the glorious surroundings of the Royal Opera House. Perhaps that's not the kind of place that immediately springs to mind.
Yesterday, though, a viola player won a landmark court case after suffering serious damage to his hearing while performing with an orchestra at the historic London venue.
Now, the High Court heard that Chris Goldscheider was exposed to noise of 130 decibels. That's the equivalent of a jet taking off while sitting in the front of the brass section.
Joining us now, Dr. Greg Nassar, who's an audiologist, and Nina Price, who's a trumpet player at the Royal Northern College of Music. Very good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Nina, first of all, can I just ask you about your hearing?
Yep.
I mean, you play in orchestras all the time.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you're being affected?
So obviously it varies depending on what I'm doing, who I'm playing with, and sometimes I do feel like there are levels of sound that I'm being subjected to that are loud, but often there are
Loud
things,
as in damaging loud?
well, potentially, without things in place to prevent damage. In my experience, more often than not, there are preventative measures in place, like earplugs that we'll be talking about, and sound shields as well. So it does vary.
What sections would be, I mean, you're in the brass section, notoriously loudest part of an orchestra, and the naughtiest part of the orchestra, usually. So would that be the section? I mean, you've also got the timpani drums as well,
Yeah.
particularly loud. I mean, what sections of the area of the orchestra would be cordoned off, and can you ask for that?
Yeah, so obviously the percussion section, like you said, are naturally very loud, and our section, and often woodwinds can be very loud as well. So more often than not, it's the strings that would have sound shields in front of them. But depending on the setup of the ensemble, you can ask for sound shields. I've done big band gigs where there's been a trombonist or percussion quite close behind me, and I've just asked for a sound shield, which is like a plastic shield that just goes behind your head, and that's helped.
Greg Nassar, audiologist, just talk us through some of the things that we mentioned there, the precautions.
So the precautions, classically sound shields or custom-made noise protection. So you've got a couple of pairs there. So musicians.
Yeah, I've got them in my hand here. So just describe what we're seeing.
So we've got a couple of pairs there, one with a cord on and one without a cord. So these are custom-made ear protection with a musician's filter in that attenuates everything equally. So traditionally, the plastic plug, the foam tip, would attenuate different frequencies by different amounts, which traditionally the classically trained musicians don't tend to like because they don't quite get the feedback from their piece or their partners. Also, some of the, certainly the woodwind, the brass, and those vocalists, the singers, when they inflate, when they're playing, they can sometimes get an occlusion effect too, which again is like a booming or echoing sound on the back of their head or their nose. So they would like to try and relieve some of that with these custom-made earplugs.
Well, Nina, do you wear earplugs? I mean, how convenient is it? Because when you're playing in an orchestra, you need to hear what's going on around you.
Yeah.
To know your cues and levels as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me personally, earplugs aren't the thing I'd love to wear all the time. Often, like Greg just said, if you talk with your fingers in your ears, you can hear your mouth moving and you can hear your tongue moving. And obviously for a brass instrument, when that is the sound production, it can be quite distracting. But if I'm in an environment where I need to, for example, a pit and there's musical theatre going on, it's often quite small. So in those circumstances, I would wear earplugs.
Now, you have very kindly brought your trumpet in. You're going to play just something for us so we get a sense of the noise that you create. And Greg, maybe you talk afterwards about how loud that is.
And you're fine sitting there.
You're going to test this.
Are you?
I've got a sound level meter here that was going to measure the loudness.
Okay,
I'll do it
you
at the
play.
end of the horn and then about.
And I suppose if you aim towards that way, so away from us almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's measuring between around about 90 to 95 dB. It's about 1.5 meters away. And we did some measurements backstage as well. And if I was measuring it at her ear, that's pretty much similar.
Just
time.
explain those levels.
So 90 to 95.
Damaging levels?
Damaging levels depending on the duration. So the damaging level is often based on something called an LEQ, which effectively averages out a noise dose over a particular time. So each noise level has a safe listening time. And with every 3 decibel increase, you can halve the time. So as an example, 85, usually it's safe for 8 hours. 88 is safe for 4 hours, 91 safe for 2 hours, and so on. So that level would be safe to sit here for around about 2 hours.
Thank you very much. It's really interesting. Greg, thank you. And Nina, we should say, lovely playing.
Beautiful
Loud,
tone.
but lovely. Thank you
Beautiful
very much.
tone.
Thank you.
Thank you.